to our website after today. It'll probably go up, I would say, either very late today or Monday morning. But it'll be posted to our website, so you can watch it anytime you want. You can share it with friends so they can watch it anytime they want. And everybody that registered today will get a rewatch email with the link, so you don't have to go looking for it. You don't have to page through the website. It'll come right to your inbox.
Thanks, Meg. All right, well, hi everyone. To introduce myself, my name is Lauren. I'm the Director of Marketing and Community for PowerToFly. I've been with PowerToFly for almost 3 years now, and I actually launched our virtual chat and learn program a little over 2 years ago. So back when we were hosting one chat every month or so, and just last year, I hosted over 300 virtual events, and this year we're slated to do over 400 just in this one quarter. So we've grown exponentially. We've held a ton of different styles of events, used plenty of different softwares, and I've done a few different talks with CMX and a couple other platforms on what this transition looks like and how to really best prepare yourself to turn your in-person event into a virtual one. So like I said, please start typing your questions in the chat. If you have anything that you want to ask live, either use the raise your hand feature or come off camera and raise your hand. But there are some things that I want to make sure we address before we get started. So bear with me and feel free to ask any follow-up questions in the chat as we go. So probably the most asked question that I got for this chat was talking about platforms. So there are tons of platforms out there, and especially with everything that's going on in the world, platforms seem to be just coming out of the woodworks here. So I want to talk about a few of my personal favorites here. And the key thing that I want to stress when it comes to choosing a virtual event platform is really think about what you're trying to get out of this. So we'll talk about goals and how that transitions from your in-person to your virtual event. But at the end of the day, to me, it's how many people can I get online at one time and get them engaging with the content itself. So probably the most important distinction that I want to make here is a lot of us are Googling webinar software. And we don't have enough time here for me to get into why I hate the word webinar, but the main reason is most webinar platforms are not set out for one-to-one or this, more engaged interaction that we're looking to get from these events. So instead of looking for webinar softwares, I want y'all to look for meeting softwares. And most platforms like Zoom, GoTo, Google, BlueJeans that I have here offer both. And traditionally that webinar software is a little more expensive. So what I have on my screen here, and I'll zoom in so y'all can see it, but are the 4 top meeting platforms that I recommend. Zoom, above all, is my favorite go-to platform, GoToMeeting, Google Meet, and BlueJeans. For a couple reasons. Zoom and BlueJeans have probably the most interactive features for the lowest price and for the most number of guests on the actual call itself, on top of your multi-platform access. So you can join from their app, you can join from a browser, you can join from your phone. So think about accessibility too, because if you want to get the most number of people on your call and engaged, you want to give them the resources that they need to be successful. So a lot of questions about platforms, and then even got a few questions about which tools are the best for larger virtual events, so over 250 attendees. And some people asked about Hopin, Remo, Run the World, cost levels, high cost, mid-range, low cost. And then my favorite part, what's the best way to hack these platforms to create a personal connection and serendipity. So again, all of these platforms are really coming out of the woodworks right now, and some of them are really good and really well designed. Unfortunately, with this crazy time, they are completely backed up as well. So I know I was trying to get a demo. I joined one of the public demos for Hopin last week, wanted to get a more personal one to ask some of my traditional questions, and I couldn't schedule one until late May. So while I think these platforms are great, I think the market is super oversaturated right now, which is okay because there are ways that we can kind of go around using some of these more well-developed tools. But Hopin definitely is a great platform. We've worked with Remo in the past. Jitsi, yes, Jitsi is something that we've been looking into because it is open source, so that's really cool. Icebreaker, not necessarily a large-scale events platform, but a piece of the puzzle that I want to talk about when we get to engagement. But again, to me, and maybe this makes me a crazy person, but I really believe that the best bang for your buck is going to be actually hacking Zoom. And I say hacking Zoom lightly here. So let me explain kind of what I mean. So Zoom has so many different options, and especially if we go back to thinking about the meeting versus webinar and what each one of those offerings entails. And if you have the access to a little bit of development resources, or even just the ability to create new pages, so one page with multiple links or a couple pages with different quote unquote rooms, this is what I would consider hacking Zoom. So you can purchase multiple Zoom licenses, say for a big conference, or if you want to have a networking session, a keynote, a panel, all functioning in the same time, by purchasing 3 different rooms, 4 different rooms, 5 different rooms. I mean, we're looking right now for our conference, 20 plus rooms. Each one of those rooms can operate at the same time via separate links on your site. So I could definitely talk for hours about how to make this possible, but this kind of ties into one of our questions about really transitioning from that in-person to virtual, and what does that look like? Because we have so many really big events planned, and it can feel really daunting to think about all of the preparation and planning and agenda work that we put into this large conference or in-person gathering, and how do we make that virtual? And truth be told, it's really easy. So got a lot of questions about how many hours should I spend making this transition. Love this one. Knowing that virtual events cannot completely replicate a live event, what are the most important things to consider? I'm going to push back there and say it can completely replicate your in-person event. And I did a little exercise for another talk, and what I thought was really interesting was I wrote down what my typical agenda was for one of our in-person events at PowerToFly, from literally receiving that first invitation by a friend forwarding me a LinkedIn article, to me getting my Uber home after the event and getting a piece of swag in the mail the next day, or picking it up at the event. Every bit of this event agenda can be replicated virtually if you just write it down, think about your goals, and match the software accordingly. So there's a lot to unpack here. And again, we could probably talk for hours and hours and hours upon, or how to actually make each one of these individual pieces work. But my best suggestion for you is to quite literally write down your agenda. Every room, every event that you have going on, and, almost draw like a little tree. Like, how do I think this can be done virtually? Can I do this with Zoom? Can I do this with Icebreaker? What would be the optimal scenario for this online? And truth be told, I think when you really lay it all out on paper, it's not going to feel that scary, because there are solutions for all of this. And if there isn't a solution, someone's probably making it.
So we have one question in the Zoom chat. I don't know if you want to take it now or if you want to push it to later. Kara's asking, how do you keep things secure when you post multiple Zoom rooms on a website? And since we've done this in a PowerToFly capacity, I thought you'd be in a very good position to answer this question.
Yeah. So lots of different ways. And again, Zoom is so fantastic. They have so many ways of securing the rooms, and, you as an organizer, have a lot of different opportunities as well, depending on, how much tech work, I guess, you want to do. So Zoom has the meeting password capabilities. So you can send out passwords to anyone who is receiving your event invitation. And, when we're talking about meeting and webinar, so Zoom meeting versus Zoom webinar actually has a few different event tools that can help you secure this even more, built right into that platform. We don't use Zoom webinar. We actually totally use Zoom meeting, and everything is really held behind our invitation wall, if you may. So, a lot of this is done through Eventbrite, which is also, free for everyone to use. So, you create your Eventbrite, and then when you're setting it up, there's all the options for, confirmation emails, reminder emails, really everything's automated, and you can just add in those Zoom links. So, once someone gets the invitation, there's either a unique password or a unique link for them. That's all done on that Zoom creation. So yes, people asking about the Prezi. It's amazing. We can talk about that too, but I hope that answers your question, Kara. There's lots of different ways to do it. Again, my suggestion is to really write out what you need, and then, work backwards from the software. So what does your event structure agenda look like? And then, match the tool with those features to that piece. And then, it will all come together piece by piece.
And plus what, kind of piggybacking off of what Lauren said, Kara had asked if how do you keep things secure when you post multiple Zoom rooms on a website? It might honestly be so simple as to, instead of just posting them on a website, ask for people, see who wants to join in, make it a calendar reminder or something so that they are adding it to their exact calendar. Now, that's not to say that they're not going to post it elsewhere, but we also can't control everything, right? So taking kind of proactive steps on the front end, and then doing your research before you host these events, so that you know how to best use the tools that you've decided are the most optimal for you, and how to make the changes. And we had the situation with the virtual career fair where we had random bot looking things that would jump into the chats, and it was honestly as simple as knowing and showing each of the hosts, here's how you mute that person, and here's how you remove that person if they're a distraction, but you can mute them and let them stay without them taking over, say, the chat feature.
That's a really good point, Meg. And, important too, for anyone who's planning virtual events, if you're the host, think about how you would, again, in real life, if someone were to, come to the event that wasn't necessarily invited, or, maybe a protester, or I know we had some nonprofit, big events that, we had questions about, but how would you handle that situation? So it's kind of the same thing, but in the virtual sense. So you as the organizer and whoever your event host is needs to be really comfortable with the software. They need to know how to block, how to mute, how to kick people out of the chats or out of the meeting altogether. And then also know that there are settings on the back end that you can activate prior to the event itself. And Zoom has all of these too, where once you kick someone out of a meeting, they can't come back. Or, there's a setting that says, yes, they can, but with a password or with permission. So really just, diving into all of the features. And if privacy is a concern for you, these are the things that you should be writing down on your list of must-haves for the event. So then when you're debating between platforms, that's a specific line item on the specs of the software that to ask. And some other really important line items on that note are, storage capability. Are they making you store the recording on your computer? Do they have cloud storage? People don't often think about the recordings because that's just something that, they assume the software does for them. But some of the softwares will not store for you, especially on these free versions. So if you want your event recorded, that's something that you need to ask ahead of time. Privacy is obviously, super important. And then moderator tools. So can you see everyone on camera at one time? Or is it one person, 4 people, 10 people? Zoom lets you have everyone on camera, which is one of the reasons why I love it. But think about what's really important to you. And again, write it all out, exactly what you would expect from your in-person event, and then work backwards to see what software fits all of those needs. Yeah, Meg says dry runs are key. Oh my gosh, you can never have enough dry runs. So important.
Well, look how many of these we've done. I mean, how many you've done. Lauren literally, she's not kidding. She's not tooting her own horn too much. Like, she literally pioneered this program. And yet we still did a dry run before this office hour session because we were going to road test the Prezi and wanted to be sure that you all had the best experience we could provide.
And there were bugs. So it's, even people who you would consider experts, like problems happen. I was freaking out to Meg before this because I couldn't get it to work. So, definitely, practice makes perfect, and you can never, you never know when something, it's better to be prepared for something that you don't expect than underprepared and, freaking out when you're live. I want to talk about one more thing when it comes to, pivoting from in-person to virtual. And, this was, I went way too far. Kind of one of my favorite pieces of this. And when I was really thinking about it and writing down my agenda and what I wanted to get and how I would explain the high level overview of how you can do this, it really comes down to goals. And when I say it really comes down to goals, why are you holding an in-person event? There's a reason, whether it's, you're looking to raise money, you're looking to, collect some sales leads, whether you're doing a networking event, you're just raising brand awareness, or, just want to capture some emails. The goals that you are setting for your in-person event are exactly the same as the goals for your virtual event. This should not change as you transition to virtual. And I got a ton of questions from people saying like, oh, well, this is a huge conference, or, this is just a meet and greet, or, talking about very specific examples. And that's fine. That's even better because, seemingly you are holding this in-person event for a reason. Take a step back and really think about what that reason is. And that's going to help you, not only think about the agenda, if you want to even work backwards from here, but really dive into how this new virtual setting can escalate what that initial goal was. Because, now I did a virtual meet and greet last night, and there was a woman who had been a part of this meetup group for 5 years, but had never gone to one of their actual in-person events because it was just on the other side of town. And because of traffic and rush hour, she just would never be able to make it from work to the event. So that was her first event for this meetup group in 5 years. So the possibilities here from switching to virtual are really endless. If you just take a step back and think about, what are my goals here? What am I looking to achieve? And then, writing down step by step what I need to do to actually achieve them.
Think of it from terms of inclusivity. I mean, we know better than a lot of people that when you go to host events, especially since we have such a diversity focus, people want to host these events in impressive places, right? So they want to host it at like their headquarters or something. These areas are not always very accessible to everybody. I mean, as somebody who used to live in a city without a car, if I wanted to go someplace that was not walkable or easily and safely, like, with a taxi or rideshare. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when you actually had to use taxis. Like this whole situation of everybody pivoting virtual is really opening everyone up to such a wider audience. You can include people that could not make it before. It's great.
Absolutely. And that's such a good segue into kind of this next piece that I wanted to talk about, which is that easing anxiety. So we got a question. What do you tell clients when they're nervous that virtual events won't engage their audience to the same extent? And I'm going to push back here again because a traditional webinar's engagement, virtual events engagement is higher than an in-person event. And if you follow this seamless format, which is ask your community what they want. At PowerToFly, we were able to raise our virtual event engagement up to 62%. The average on a virtual event is around 35 to 45%. Again, higher than an in-person event drop-off rate in comparison. But this is actually higher. So you're going to be able to engage not only a larger group of people, but get them more involved and more interested in what you're doing because they have access, either in a more comfortable setting or they don't have to worry about parking. Like Meg said, inclusivity, stretches far beyond just the ability to get to the event. Some people don't have the means and the access to buy these crazy expensive conference tickets, fly there, then pay for the week of, hotel food, and even to take a step back there, some people don't have, even the means to pay for parking for some of these in-person events. So, talking about engagement, virtual, I would not be worried about, presenting this to a C-level or client that, you're trying to convert. There are so many stats out there, and whoever asked this question, I have a whole deck on, engagement statistics, what this looks like, pivoting to virtual. So totally reach out to me afterwards and I can send you some of these, but there's so much out there, and really, truly, you are getting a better bang for your buck when you're going virtual. I'm kind of just talking my head off, so Meg, stop me if there are any other questions.
We don't have any more in the chat, but the one thing I did want to make sure we touched on, because a couple people have asked, is about the Prezi. I remember they had a cleaner way of saying this, but when I was trying to explain it to my friend this morning, it's basically like if you can overlay a PowerPoint over your video. So I think it's going to do some really cool stuff for our organization, and we're working with Prezi to help kind of spread the word and get other people excited about it too. I mean, honestly, it's pretty great, and I think it's a ringing endorsement that multiple people asked in the chat, like, what is that and how are you doing it, before we said word one about, hey, this is a new thing we're rolling out. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The other thing I do want to say before we get off the topic is that when we're talking about like troubleshooting and things, like being open with your community that you're trying something and this is how it's going to go, we're in this really nice space now where everybody's being forced into remote work, and it's sometimes very, not slapdash isn't the word I'm looking for, but we're all getting more comfortable with the fact that you don't need the perfectly polished office setup. I mean, I know I have a nice setup behind me, but like, you don't have to. People are joining from their couches. People are joining from their kitchen tables. They're joining with a baby on a hip and a cat sleeping on your shoulder and a dog pawing at your feet. Everybody's in the same boat. So we're also, I want to say that we're not getting less professional from a working standpoint. I think we're getting more inclusive and more understanding that not everything has to be picture perfect to make a good presentation, to engage with your audience, to bring people together, really. Like, we're in the space, we're going to cut everybody some slack. If you've got a screaming kid and you're on mute, but you're still there and connecting, I want your butt there. I want you to be able to listen to us, and I want you to join and feel like you can see new faces today. Like, I'm not going to lie to you guys, this saves my sanity, literally. Like, seeing new people come, like, I don't care if you've got dirty hair. I don't care if you're still in your jammies. I joined in a onesie last week, no lie, because that's what made me feel good. So,
you're reading my mind, because that's kind of what I wanted to get to when we talk about, standing out. And we got tons of questions asking, how do we maintain networking opportunities and be successful in a digital space? I work for an AV company that's looking to expand our offerings at all of our partner convention centers. What advice do you have for turning these large-scale physical conventions that offer similar benefits to attendees? And again, just like Meg said, be vulnerable, put yourself out there, and, be a real person coming to these events. We have all different types, formats, settings, much more formal virtual events. And then if we zoom in here, we call like our Fash Fun Friday event at PowerToFly, where, we get a little silly. So we're not in, traditional work clothes, or, we are all not on mute. It's a much more relaxed setting. And because we're going virtual, we have all of these new opportunities. Like I kind of mentioned before, last night we had our very first meet and greet networking session on PowerToFly done virtually. And what I really loved is we kind of formulated it in this way that we did an ask and offer section. So if you're thinking about, how can we get more involved and people engaged and really stand out, provide unique opportunities to your community that they're looking for. Our community is filled with professional women, and they're looking to network with each other and find new jobs or upskill or share cool projects that they're working on. So we gave this opportunity for women to come on and introduce themselves, share an ask that they had, along with an offer that they could bring to the community. And this really switched up what I would consider the traditional networking, which is, let's just hop on a Zoom and get coffee for 5 minutes, which is great too. But if you want to stand out and get your company and business recognized for something different, think outside the box and really see what your community needs in this time and make that happen virtually. Was there a question in the chat?
Yeah, we're getting some good questions here. So River was saying they feel very old here. They're trying to zigzag out of their 20-year job. And I think I feel you on that. Like it's definitely a situation where, I've been in this job for 1.5 years and using Zoom for 1.5 years, but before then I didn't use it at all. And I've got people, like friends of mine, like teachers, that are calling me saying like, well, how do I set up, you use Zoom, like how do I set this up for my classroom? How do I do this? And these are situations where you definitely we all need to stretch our tech comfort zones a little, right? But we live in this age of Google. You can learn a lot of things from the internet, but don't discount the knowledge that your team members might have. So if you've got somebody that knows how to do, how to manage the Zoom setup, ask them to walk you through it. I know that there's ways you can find training videos on a ton of stuff, but don't discount that benefit of sharing knowledge with your teammates, because yes, you still get the same information you could get from a Google search, yeah, but you're also building that team connection. You're telling them, I'm a person, I know that you know something cool and I would love to learn from you, which gives you that, warm fuzzy feeling between team members and helps build that kind of camaraderie. Lauren and I have never physically met, but this girl, she needs something, I am there for her, because she's shown me how to do some really cool stuff. And I've gotten to show her some small things that I know how to do. So it builds this really good rapport that helps with that kind of team feeling when you are separated by 6 blocks or 6,000 miles. It doesn't matter.
So well said, Meg. The last bit here, I know we have 2 minutes left, so I'm going to talk through this really quick, but is the piece on increasing engagement. And we definitely talked about this a little bit as we went through some of the other questions here, but some of the questions we got were, with everyone shifting to virtual at the same time, do you have strategies for driving attendance and making virtual events stand out among the hundreds of invitations in one's inbox? Along with, how to leverage these real-time meetings, opposed to status updates or emails, getting people more engaged. And again, something that I'm really passionate about is this event feedback loop. And I'm going to try and talk through it very quickly, but starting with all of these pieces are so intertwined, and that's why it's a loop. You need to understand what your community wants, create that specific programming for them, invite everyone, and I'll touch on inviting in a really quick second, and then invite more people. Foster that engagement before, during, and after the live event. We have 2 PowerToFly team members on here with me. Meg to help me kind of walk through all this, Nicole sharing links in the chat. We have team on deck to help answer your questions and make sure we're making this the most beneficial event for you as possible. And then getting feedback. Feedback is a gift. That's how you're going to learn and grow and just get better with all of these events. So, really take each one of these pieces and work through it in a loop. You can only get better with the next one, and your learnings that you take from your first event will help you not only reach higher goals, but pivot your solutions, in the next iteration and find out what really works for your community so you can serve them the best way humanly possible. And one more quick thing, I know we're at time, but I want to talk about the actual inviting of events. And this is the secret sauce of getting people to actually show up. So, you know, I really mean it when I say invite everyone you know and then invite more. So as I showed in that one slide, you know, we're looking at a 63% engagement rate at PowerToFly because we are giving people what they want. Traditional events, you know, have an attendance rate of about, you know, 35 to 40%. Virtual events a little more so, and depending on how broad or small your audience is. So you really need to think about, you know, what does this look like working from the funnel? So if you want 50 people on that call, you need to have 100 people that are RSVP'd for that chat. We had like 60 something people signed up for our chat today. And I think like the highest I've seen here right now is 25. So, you know, you have to like work those ratios, and you'll learn what's best for your community as you know, do these over and over again. And then, you know, again, one step higher, 100 RSVPs, that means you have to have 1,000 page views. So people who are coming to your event, looking at that page, maybe not clicking RSVP, but now they know who you are, which means you have to get that page in front of 50,000 people just to get those 1,000 views, just to get those 100 RSVPs, just to get those 50 engaged participants. So this is kind of my formula here when it comes to actually hosting a successful virtual event with engaged participants, because, you know, you really can't ever invite too many people. So yes, that is the secret sauce funnel that I'm working with for all of these virtual events. But, you know, really at the end of the day, and I want to wrap us up here, but hosting a virtual event should not be scary. It's an exciting opportunity for all of us, a chance to meet people from across the globe that you would never get the chance to network and interact with virtually. And I truly, truly, truly believe that any event that you are hosting in person can be made identical in this virtual setting. So, you know, throw me some curveballs, send me an email. I know Meg and Nicole are putting my LinkedIn and email in the chat, along with all the resources that y'all can find for PowerToFly. But, you know, reach out to me if you have any other questions. Hopefully we can do another session like this soon, but I just want to thank everyone so much for being here today. Really appreciate your time, and I hope that you are able to take something away from this session and give us some feedback. How can we do better? What we you know, can give you for content in the future. But yeah, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, folks. That was so great.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Remember, you'll get a rewatch link here shortly. And yeah, it's been great connecting with everybody.
Yay.
Thank you.